So at long last, we are finally here. I finally have gotten my hands on the 2026 Kawasaki KLX 230, a motorcycle that we have been waiting for with bated breath ever since Kawasaki dropped its jaw-dropping price tag of 1.84 lakhs, down from almost 3 lakhs for the previous model. And that's because this motorcycle is now made in India. It's 95% made in India is what I'm told. And that's why Kawasaki could reduce the price, which again is unbelievable because they've never been able to do this in the past. But then again, makes you a little bit suspicious, like if this is heavily compromised, and which is exactly why we are here. So the biggest thing to talk about in terms of changes between the previous model and this one, and the Indian spec one, is the fact that the suspension travel has reduced. It used to be 240 at the front and 250 at the back. It's down to 220 and 223 for the rear, and which is why even the ground clearance has reduced from, I think, 265 to 255 millimeter, which is again plenty and more. My first guess was that they've done this to make this even more accessible for newer riders, possibly to reduce the seat height, but I looked at the seat height and it's still the same 880 millimeters. My second guess was that maybe what they wanted to do was, as these folks are now, the suspension is made in India, they just wanted to keep the weight in check. They still wanted to hit that sweet 139 kg curve weight mark, which they have done. Kudos to them for doing that. But I still wasn't 100% sure, so I asked Kawasaki, like, hey, why did you make this change? And they said that they are now positioning the Indian spec KLX 230 more as a dual purpose rather than a proper enduro trail bike. And they wanted to give this bike a little more feel when you're riding it on the road, to inspire a little more confidence. And yeah, definitely, as you are sat a little bit lower down, you can feel the front a little bit more. You have a little more feedback. The chassis and all continue to inspire the same level of confidence. But honestly, I did not really have a problem with the previous bike either. I loved it. Yes, it did take some time to get used to the suspension travel because it was on the softer side, so it would move around quite a bit. But again, the best part about this bike is you can ride it in so many different ways. The ergonomics and all have pretty much stayed the same. So you have a seat which comes all the way almost to the handlebar, so you can ride it more like a MX bike, load the front, and it inspired just as much confidence for sure. Maybe the feedback wasn't as good, but I honestly did not really have many problems with that. But as I'm braking, yeah, that's the other thing I'm noticing. So that's the other big change. The front disc size on the previous model was 265 millimeters. Now it's up to 290. Even the rear disc is now bigger to, I think, from 220 to 230 millimeters. So expect the braking to be much, much better, and it's not really that much better. I think because of the size of the disc, Kawasaki have in fact erred on the side more of caution in terms of they've made the braking overall to be really progressive. The brakes start biting much, much later when the lever is almost all the way in. So yeah, I was expecting the brakes to be a lot more powerful, and they're not. And I can understand, because again, this is a motorcycle you would also take off-road, but I think in emergency situations, the brakes don't inspire the most amount of confidence. I almost prefer the previous brakes because with the pedal disc and everything, they were still quite potent. You could pull stoppies on them. But I fired out of this corner. Yeah, that's what I'm loving, man. This engine is mega. So again, it's the same engine, same cubic capacity, air-cooled, SOHC, 2 valves. Very simple engine, but Kawasaki have managed to pull out a little more juice out of it. Now this makes 19 PS and 19 Newton meters compared to 18 PS and 18.3 Newton meters on the previous bike. My guess is this is probably down to the exhaust routing. This one is much straighter. It has a different exhaust compared to the exhaust on the previous bike. But it's worked because I love how engaging it is to ride. I love how responsive the throttle is. The torque curve has been perfectly matched to the overall gear ratios. And for a bike of this cubic capacity and this power, I think also because it's so damn light, feels so lively, so engaging to ride even on the road. absolutely brilliant. And even because of the shorter gear ratios, the tractability on this is fantastic. You can easily see this pull cleanly without using the clutch in the fourth gear from as low as 30 kilometers per hour. And in terms of the top end, yeah, you do feel a little bit of improvement there, because I could clock 120 on the highway and the engine still felt like there was more left in the tank, which is brilliant. In terms of vibrations, again, I'm happy to report that all of this performance hasn't come at the cost of refinement. You do feel some vibes. There are barely any vibes on the foot pegs, but you can feel them on the handlebar, which is why I also believe that maybe the older handlebar was a better option, because it had this cross beam, which possibly helped keep the vibes in check. But again, the vibes are not really bad. They do increase, but they don't increase exponentially as the revs climb. They do settle down. And honestly, vibration for me is not an issue. One thing which is an issue is the mechanical clatter. Yeah, that's the one thing. The mechanical clatter on this has most definitely increased. And that's the first thing you notice as soon as you even fire up the engine. I'm not sure if it's a tappet sound, but it's definitely a whole lot louder. And that was not the case on the previous engine, on the previous iteration of this motorcycle. In terms of the ride quality, so far I feel like the ride quality is really good. Whatever bad roads that I've been on, I think it still does a really good job of absorbing everything. I especially love the front so far. The rear, I feel on the slower speeds, you do feel the sharpest of bumps creep in on your back. But as you pick up the pace and you hit bad stretches at like 60 or 70 kilometers an hour, it actually just flattens them out and you don't feel them. So ride quality again has still been quite impressive, but that's my cue. Now let's see if this suspension works as well when you go off-road. But that is where it really impressed us a lot. Man, this is such an easy motorcycle to ride, just because it's so damn light. An absolute boon, especially for new riders. Very easy to ride. You have a 2180 setup, which is exactly what you want for this kind of a terrain. But yeah, oh wow, that's interesting. As I pick up speed, gosh, wow, okay. So the front already seems to be kind of at its limit. The rear seems to be taking this abuse much better. The front, yeah, seems to already be not liking this very much. Already bottomed it out a couple of times already. Ride quality, especially at slower speeds like right now, yeah, you can feel all of these bumps. But as you pick up the pace, the rear shock smoothens out all of these bumps. And the front right now feels great, but as you pick up the pace off-road is where the front feels a lot more compromised. And the setup, yeah, is not really designed to go really hard in the dirt. As long as you don't want to go fast, this bike is fantastic for riding around in the trails. But this is what differentiates the previous bike from this one is, on that bike you could do everything and it would take everything in its stride. It was ready for everything that you would throw its way. If you want to go fast, if you want to go slow, you had amazing ride quality at any speed. You had amazing composure even at higher speeds, even when you were belting it off-road. Here, yeah, that's the compromise that you get for having a motorcycle with lesser travel and with a damping more set for the road than proper off-road. So to summarize, the Indian Spec KLX 230 has turned out to be more like a bittersweet kind of experience, because I wasn't 100% sure about this engine.
part of me, to be brutally honest, was a little bit worried that it's going to be like a really dulled out version. But if anything, I was pleasantly surprised to see the punch that it packs, how responsive the throttle is. It makes the motorcycle really engaging to ride. You cannot believe you're riding just like a 233cc bike, you know, the way it delivers the power combined with such a light weight. It's a lot more fun on the road than you expect it to be. Yes, the mechanical clutter is something which Kawasaki needs to look into to make it a little more quieter as they managed with the previous iteration in terms of the engine. But the engine for me is a big check. The rest of the bike too, in terms of the ergonomics, in terms of the rider's triangle, in terms of the poise that it has, is again a big check. But then what I'm sad about is I don't necessarily agree with Kawasaki in terms of suddenly positioning this as a dual sport and thereby compromising the travel it had. Because I think what has happened is, with that argument, as a dual sport, this bike clearly has its limitations in terms of you have only a 7.5 litre tank, which is definitely not the best for a proper dual sport machine. You have a seat which is again really thin. It's not really designed for comfort, for if you really want those longer jaunts to explore trails which are much further away. I'm not entirely convinced, especially when all of this comes at the cost of perhaps what was the one thing which truly blew me away on the previous iteration of this motorcycle, which was its capability off-road. Because with that motorcycle, you had a suspension setup which was quite simple, but you did not have any adjustability, but it worked in pretty much every single scenario. I never once felt out of control. The suspension was equally good even at higher speeds when you were tackling some really gnarly terrain. Now in this setup, this is definitely more road biased, and don't get me wrong, it will definitely take you wherever it is that you want to go. Even for the really tight technical trails up a mountain, I still think this is perhaps your best bet. But if you are an enthusiast who also likes speed and also likes to go fast off-road, from that front, the front definitely feels compromised, and it's not really designed for carrying that much speed and really attacking the trails. But then again, there are two big factors which I have to mention. Firstly, the bike now comes with a 10-year warranty. So all of you who are doubting the engine and the sound that it's making, if it's going to be as reliable as we expect a Kawasaki engine to be, well, you also have the 10-year extended warranty which you can opt for to give you that peace of mind. And secondly, with the money, the colossal chunk of money that you are saving with its new 1.84 lakh price tag, you definitely have enough in your pockets to possibly go ahead and upgrade the suspension to again then have a bike which pretty much does everything that you want it to do. I think right now, if you are a person who has never gone off-road and are looking for a machine to give you the confidence to go off-road, there is no better motorcycle than this. It defeats everything else, whether it's your X-Pulses or your adventure bikes, by a country mile to first get acquainted to riding in the dirt. Yeah, for the enthusiasts, you can now probably look at either upgrading this or the 390 Enduro R International Spec from KTM.